Hi, I'm Doris Epstein, and welcome to MENSCHlife TV. Today, two very extraordinary, even brand new concepts and organizations. Let's start with the food movement, the new Jewish food movement. For thousands of years, Jews have grappled with the laws of kashrut, with thinking about food. It shaped our history, it shaped our culture. Lately, things have become even more complex. Food choices are becoming more complicated. Nutritional awareness, chemical additives, genetic modification. Out of this, lately, has emerged a movement that questions not only what we put into our bodies, but the ethics. It's taken the form of the new Jewish food movement. It's changed our whole cultural paradigm from being passive consumers to being active producers and advocates, and all within the context of Judaism. We're going to be talking to two leaders in that movement. And later, another new for Canada, relatively new, and relatively new in the United States, but well known from globally, a Turkish Muslim movement led by a very charismatic spiritual leader called Fatih Gulen, who is determined to build bridges with all communities and faiths around the world for the common good. Right now, we'll start with our two leaders in the Jewish New Food Movement. We're talking with Vivian Stadlin and her husband Yoni, both of whom have started a camp, the first ever sleepover organic environmental awareness camp. That's a big mouthful, Vivian. Tell us about the camp.
Well, hi there. We set out to start the next generation of Jewish summer camps. And what we did is we created Eden Village Camp. We received a $1 million grant through the Foundation for Jewish Camp and the Jim Joseph Foundation to create a camp where all of our food's organic. The kids are fully integrated into the food process, the farm-to-table process. And it's a place where we care about the planet, we care about our food, and we care about each other. And it's been a dream come true. We have about 300 campers coming this summer. All over the country, really all over the world, from other countries as well.
And this is only 3 years ago. How did this happen? Vivian, you're a lawyer. You could have taken a much easier path than being a pioneer. What propelled you to do this?
Well, this is the most deeply satisfying and inspiring work I've ever had the blessing to do. Yoni's directed other camps, other Jewish camps before, and always there's a sense of trying to steer the ship in a different direction towards deeper commitment to our Jewish values and deeper enacting of these values in the program and in the operations of camp. And there was a niche that wasn't yet filled, where a lot of Jewish families today really care about what they're putting into their kids' bodies and where that food comes from, and values of living harmoniously with the rest of the earth. And so we've had this incredible grant that's allowed us to make our dream into reality, and we've found that this dream is actually shared by hundreds of other families. And so by creating this sort of realistic utopia, this camp, we've been able to attract a huge number of families to make it work.
Yoni, do you want to add to this? You also could have taken an easier career path. Why are you doing this? Why are you putting yourself on the front line for something that goes far beyond camping? It's a philosophy.
I'll tell you, I had worked at camps before. I was at the Jewish Theological Seminary. I was getting a degree in informal Jewish education, and one day I was doing the dishes in my apartment, and I was thinking ahead. Okay, so I'm going to be working in this camping industry, but in my projection, it seemed like it was going to be a struggle because I would want to steer the camps in other directions. And in that moment, while I was actually doing the dishes, I had the idea, wait a second, let's start a brand new camp based on these values and these values that people have in their homes that they're looking for in their camps. And I'll tell you that it's been the most rewarding thing, and the work is an interesting thing. It can feel very onerous, and if it's work that's meaningful and rewarding, it really feels like a joy, and it's really fulfilling. And this has been absolutely fulfilling. We're finding that we're changing lives. This isn't a camp that is meant as a summer daycare for children. It's meant specifically also for when they go home. That it impacts their years, and then impacts their lives, and impacts the world. And we're finding the most amazing results and hearing the most incredible stories from families.
And you started with how many children?
In our first summer, we had 134. Then in our second summer, we had 241. And then this summer, which is this coming summer, it's going to be 300 and something. So it's growing really quickly.
And is there, you're kind of a template, a model. Are other people paying attention to you? Is this picking up in other directions?
Yeah, we found that it's actually impacting the whole field of Jewish camping, where maybe 20 or 30 years ago, having something like a ropes course was the thing, and every camp had to have it. And I think we've showed up on the scene, and now lots of the other camps, thankfully, are getting inspired and are starting their own organic farming programs, or considering how to integrate healthier food. Again, all of our food is almost entirely organic. The food that we don't grow on our own Jewishly focused educational organic farm. Again, we have our own 3-acre farm right here with goats and chickens and sheep and billions of plants.
Okay, Yoni, Vivian, when we come back, we're going to talk more about specifically what does organic mean? What does kosher mean? What are the ethics? What are the traditions? How are you being directed? Back in a minute. I'm talking with Vivian and Yoni Stadlin, Eden Village Camp, but this is far more than camp. This is an encompassing philosophy that's changing the way we look at food and the way we look at our society. Is kosher enough? A couple of years ago, there was a terrible scandal with agri-processors, the largest kosher slaughterhouse in North America, even given permission to ship meat to Israel. That's how big they were. An undercover operation closed them down because they were treating the animals inhumanely and their workers. They've reopened again under new ownership. Can you comment on the idea of kashrut and the slaughtering of animals, and is that enough? Is that enough for the new Jewish food movement?
Yeah, thanks. We think that kashrut is an inspiration. It's meant to say to us, hey, don't just eat anything, and think about where your food comes from. And clearly, when it comes to being conscious about the way our animals are treated, kashrut, it comes in and says, think about where your source is, think about where your food comes from, and care for animals. And so kashrut can be enough if it's taken. If it's taken to the current state of affairs and it's implemented with what's going on now.
So kosher, it's about what is fit to eat. And this idea that what we eat matters, and we're responsible for the entire chain of consumption, from how it was grown or how the animals were raised, all the way.
Even the workers and the local farmers, is that it?
Exactly. So back when the rabbis interpreted the laws of kashrut, all food was organic, and all was pasture-raised, and now we have to update these ideas of kashrut for today's world.
The idea of factory, when kashrut the ideas came around, the ideas of factory farms. I don't think anybody could even imagine it. You had a farm, you had cows in your backyard. They were treated like maybe like your dog or your cat or something. The idea of a factory farm, nobody could have even imagined it. But now we have factory farms. And
spell out factory farming, industrial farming. And let's go to chickens as well, because even if you're vegetarian, many vegetarians eat eggs. Spell out what exactly is industrial farming.
It's where most of the meat comes from in the world, and it's where the animals have literally almost zero space to move, where beaks are cut off of the chickens, where their bones become brittle because they don't move. Animals go insane in their cages.
There's genetic modification. There's all kinds of antibiotics used to prevent these animals from becoming sick. It's the kind of farming where, for the majority of people, if they were to see the inside of one of these places, they would be very, very upset.
And that's 99% of the meat and the chickens that we eat, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the fact that it's organic, that food is organic, is that a guarantee? And tell us exactly what organic means, the word that's been thrown around too much.
Sure. Organic by itself simply means that there is no antibiotics used, that there's no genetic modification. Organic by itself, and this is for animal products, and for plants, it means that there's been no pesticides or herbicides used, and that the growing techniques are more in line with a
To be honest, the definition as it's used commonly, and the definition that's probably used by the governments that offer the stamps, they'll vary. But you can be certain that if it's organic, that it'll be more in line with better practices. But what I'd say is the best thing is if you know where your food comes from. Actually, our food at camp comes from 20 minutes down the road, or in our own farm. Our meat, we have poultry once a week from Grow and Behold. And we know, the person that brings it, and we know that the animals, they don't even just live in cages, they wander around and they live free lives. And so to know where your sources come from, I'd say it's beyond organic.
And this is growing. Jewish agricultural education, guided by Torah and Talmud, that can be applied to today's world. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, people want to get back to their roots. There's an inherent desire, I think, in all humans to know where our things come from that we need to live. And food is clearly one of them. We've hired at camp an organization called the Jewish Farm School. They're our partners. And we go right in and we're learning Jewish agricultural principles. Most of them are social justice related, interestingly. And they're learning that while farming. And so people love it. And it's happening all over. It's happening in Toronto and Chicago and California and here at Eden Village Camp and in Baltimore and Connecticut. This is booming. People are returning back to their roots to learn how to farm. It's beautiful. It's a growing
movement. This is all
movement.
part of it. Growing your own food, being producers and not being consumers. Simcha Schwartz, co-director of the Jewish Farm School, explained about what they're after. He says, it's not that every Jew should become a farmer, but that Jewish organizations, schools, and synagogues should have gardens and teach their people how to grow food and respect the land.
Amen.
Is that what it is? And I noticed this creeping. I didn't know this was part of a whole general cultural paradigm, but I noticed that some schools have their own gardens here, and that children are being instructed into how to grow their own strawberries. Is this a growing movement too?
Yeah, beautifully enough, this do-it-yourself, back-to-the-land ethic, it's a new counterculture. It's a new form of cool among young kids. And it's something that a lot of people really care about since they're growing up with awareness of Al Gore's and Inconvenient Truth and weird climate things happening and gas prices all over the map. This is part of their reality, and so they really care about protecting the earth.
Okay, we're back in a minute with the new Jewish food movement. Stay with us.
Great.
Vivian and Yoni, back to you.
Great, hi.
Go ahead.
Oh, great. We're glad to share a wonderful story that just came to us a couple days ago. One of our campers, Zachary Zolman, came home, and he was at his school last week, and they found in San Diego, and they found a huge beehive, I think somewhere maybe outside their school grounds, and the principal had his cell phone out to call the exterminator, and Zachary learned about beekeeping here at Eden Village Camp. We have bees, and the kids learned to make Shabbos candles from our wax. And he said, "Wait, don't go to the exterminator. These are precious resources." And the principal gave him 2 hours. Said, "You have 2 hours to fix this problem and turn it into a solution." And he went around class by class.
He called up a beekeeper friend and found out that in order to have the beekeeper come and extract the hive, it would cost $150. So he went from class to class and explained the situation, this urgent bee-saving situation to his classmates, and raised in 2 hours $150 from his classmates and got these bees saved and the resource saved.
How old is Zachary?
He's 12 years old, and this was completely spontaneous that this happened. And that's just one of the hundreds of stories that we hear of actions that our campers have taken, in part inspired by the learning and the grounding they've gotten at Eden Village Camp.
But you want this to expand far beyond children, far beyond your local area. You both see this as a turning point in our culture, embracing Jews and non-Jews. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. We see the Jewish community absolutely rise to embrace this expanded awareness of caring for our earth and rooting that in the Jewish values that are core to our tradition. So we have been working with a bunch of other camps to help them start organic gardens in their camps, and we're excited to help it grow.
We like to say that we're doing here, and by the way, we're in New York, we're about 50 minutes north of New York City, and we like to say that Jewish means towards universal ends. We're part of the global team, and we're getting the Jewish tribe together to figure out how we can help our planet out, so that when people of the global community want to say, "Hey, what are the Jews doing about global climate change? What are the Jews doing about sustainability?" that they'll look to us and say, "Look, you can see it, you can go there, you can touch it, you can bring your kids there, and see one of our solutions."
How about bringing adults there?
Oh yeah, we have family camps. We have about 2,000 visitors in our spring and fall. In 1 month, we'll be doing a maple syruping workshop and kicking off our spring and fall programming. It's a robust schedule in our spring and fall.
How can people get in touch with you?
Oh, good. Well, the website is edenvillagecamp.org, and there's all sorts of contact information there, and we're so happy to talk with everybody.
Yeah, just come on over. Come for a visit.
And you're only 50 miles from New York City.
That's right.
What's your email? People are going to take this seriously. I'm taking it seriously. I'm coming.
Come on over.
Sure. Please email me. My email is Vivian, Vivian, at edenvillagecamp.org.
And we're doing great, and we've got huge visions and dreams and plans for the future.
Tell us a little bit about your vision.
Well, we're building, we're growing our capacity, and we're also growing our specialty. So we have urban science and cooking, but our facilities, we're looking to make a state-of-the-art cooking and greening workshop building where the kids can go in and learn the organic cooking skills and farm preparations and mud building and clay building and green technology, the green technology building. So we've got all kinds of ideas.
We've had wonderful success in getting grants for alternative energies like solar panels and other forms of energy. There's vehicles at camp that run on garbage. They run on used vegetable oil.
Our generator that can run camp is about to get. We just got a grant to get converted to run on used vegetable oil that people often have to pay to get rid of. And we love this whole place to be running off of renewable energies. We've got big plans.
Mm-hmm.
The plans are big, but it sounds, as in your language, sustainable, doable.
Big idea. That's a big idea.
And fun. That's the thing that makes it all work. It's just such a joy to be here. And
we've got the things that other camps have. We have boating and ropes courses and arts and crafts and music and this infused sustainable ethic. Yeah.
So it's fun. You're doing something for the earth. People are doing something for themselves, and consciousness is being changed. We never looked well, we ate something, we never looked at what's in it before. We never questioned so much what went into our mouths. But you are doing far more than that. You're questioning the values, you're questioning a society that is buy, and not doing for themselves, making with their own hands. How can we be sustainable if something happens, like with the climate, like when we run out of water, when we run out of good soil? Is this what you're looking toward too? To prevent that situation?
Yeah, we're just, I mean, they're seeing it here. We're getting rain catchment so that we can actually collect rain in barrels, so that if an aquifer runs dry, we can actually capture the water. We're doing worm composting and other forms of composting, so we're teaching a variety of life skills, basic life skills that people had for a very long time, but somehow in the last 100 years, a lot of that knowledge starts to get lost.
And we're finding it again in a new way through you. I thank you very much, and I wish you much success and that your message gets really heard. Vivian and Yoni Stadlin, and all the very best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay with us. We're talking today to two people from an extraordinary organization, a Turkish Muslim organization whose goal is to reach out to communities, to all faiths, to build bridges. To my knowledge, I have never met an organization, a Muslim organization, that takes this kind of initiative. Welcome Azim Shamnshiev, Fatih Gulen.
Fatih Yegul.
Fatih
Yegul.
Okay. I'm talking about, I'm ahead of myself. We'll get to Gulen,
yeah,
yes.
That's right.
Okay, Fatih, tell us about Intercultural Dialogue Institute. That's the name of the group.
That's right.
What do you want? What are you intending to do? You're having dinners, you're having meetings. That's where I first met you, at an interfaith meeting. There were Christians, there were Jews, there were Muslims, and all within a Turkish framework with Turkish food and Turkish coffee. What is it that you want to do?
Yeah, first of all, I'm representing the Toronto branch of Intercultural Dialogue Institute, which is a nationwide Canadian institute, and we have branches in other cities. And it all started about 6-7 years ago, mainly in Toronto, Ottawa, and Montreal. And at that time, we had different names, local groups. And about 2 years ago, we decided to come together and join our forces and become a nationwide Intercultural Dialogue Institute.
But do you have the same organization in the United States?
I wouldn't say that there's the same organization in the United States, but there are similar organizations in the United States that follow the same.
What name do they go by?
I know a few of them.
They go by different names?
Different names, because these groups are mostly local groups. So in some part of the U.S., I know that there is Institute of Interfaith Dialogue in Houston. I know that there is Niagara Foundation in Chicago, and Pacifica Institute in California, something. I'm not well aware of all of them. Sometimes in conferences, etc., we come together and know each other. I know that there are other groups.
But it's all part of a massive movement whose leader is Fethullah Gulen, that we'll get to later. We'll talk more about him.
That's right. And before we go, maybe I can tell you more about our mission and what we are trying to accomplish. And Intercultural Dialogue Institute is a result of a need for a platform for people from very different walks of life to come together, interact with each other, and cooperate towards serving their community and strengthen the society, and maybe produce local solutions to global problems. So that's why we're trying to stimulate thinking and exchange of opinion from people from different backgrounds, so that we can have a contribution to the society we are living in.
Can you add to that?
I think one of the objectives that the Intercultural Dialogue Institute in Toronto and in any other parts of Canada is trying to do is to create a culture of living together, of peaceful coexistence, and to be a part of the Canadian society and to offer their own solutions and contributions to some of the issues that we're concerned here as Canadians.
You've come to it, you're not Turkish, everybody else is. You're not. You were born in Uzbekistan.
That's
How
right.
did you come to belong to this movement?
I was born and raised in Uzbekistan until the age of 21, after which I had to go to, meaning that that was my own will to go to abroad and to study. I was continuing my education in Europe, and one of the things that happens to many of, as I know, people who are coming from a different culture to a new culture, it's that they face some kind of challenges. And being from a non-Western culture, from a traditional society, somewhat traditional society, I was facing some of those challenges, trying to define my place, my lifestyle, and my own values. And what was happening is that I was realizing that if I try to stay with my own values, with my own lifestyle, then I'm kind of becoming isolated from the society. So that's where that was the point when I met...
Were you brought up as a Muslim?
Yes, I was brought up as a Muslim, and that was the point when I met some people from a group which was inspired by the ideas of Fethullah Gulen. And what was unique and original in what Fethullah Gulen was offering, and I got to know that through reading his articles and listening to some of his sermons, is that preserving my own identity, being myself, I still can be a part of this society to which I came, to which is still not known to me, and I can be part of that society, and I can be a responsible person who is concerned about the problems and some issues which are existing in that society.
But you discovered him in Hungary.
Yes,
that
that was
correct?
the country that I went to do my graduate studies, and that was where I got to know people from this movement.
And it spoke to you so strongly that it changed your life.
Yes, it changed my understanding of many things and my outlook on the world.
Can you be more specific, Azim? What changed in you? Did it change your aims, your goals in life?
Yes, I think it has a very profound effect in the sense that you go beyond just your own self. You realize that this life is not just about you living or spending your time in this life. It's about living as a society, making your own contribution to the society, and not just helping yourself, but helping to others, helping to people who are in need and who need your help. And you have some skills and some education, and it channelizes those things to be helpful to others.
We're going to come back with more about the movement, more about your activities in just a minute. The Intercultural Dialogue Institute, part of a huge movement who is inspired by a charismatic Turkish Muslim called Fethullah Gulen. Thousands upon thousands of people. Millions of dollars come in for this. Schools are built around the world in his name. He's probably one of the best known Muslim leaders in the entire world. In fact, some people say that he is creating a new Islamic network. What would you say about that?
I simply wouldn't name it as an Islamic network. That's understandable from the point of view that many of the volunteers and the majority of the volunteers right now might be from an Islamic background. But for example, as one of the organizations who is inspired by the movement and doing a local work in Toronto, in many of our activities, we do work with non-Muslims as well. We organize friendship dinners or for example, Women's Day organizations. And when we have the hosting committees, they're both Muslims, non-Muslims, Jews, Christians. We don't look at it that way. We look at it in a way that people who share the common universal human values like love, compassion, serving humanity, if they share the same ideals, we just
universal ideas.
Yeah, universal ideas, and they're not against what our belief system teaches us.
Okay, but he is a controversial figure for many. I want to read a book that you gave me by American James C. Harrington. For radical Muslims, for radical Islamists, he's too soft on Christians and Jews, and not Muslim enough because he prizes a moral life more highly than just ritualistic prayers. For neo-nationalists, for Turkish nationalists, he's a threat to the secularist nation, the Turkish Republic. And some accuse him of having a secret agenda to steer the nation towards Sharia law or even an Islamic theocracy. What would you say to that?
I would like to start first, give a sentence about who is Fethullah Gulen. You know, Fethullah Gulen is a mainstream Turkish Muslim scholar, thinker, writer, poet, and opinion leader who is for democracy, interfaith and intercultural dialogue, spirituality, and who is against violence and politicization of the religion. So even if you look at the critics, and when you have a big movement like that, it's always common that you have both critics and who are sympathizers with the movement. So this is not something very unusual. But if you look at those who are criticizing him, you can say that mostly marginal groups who are on the extreme of the spectrum are trying to criticize him. So that also shows that he's on a very moderate track, trying to attract people to a more moderate way of life so that we can all together live in a peaceful environment and peaceful society.
Isn't there a contradiction in what he's preaching as democracy when Muslims believe that there should be no separation of mosque and state? How do you explain? Is that a contradiction as a Muslim?
It's very old. You know, I'm not a scholar of Islam. I'm engineering background, but I know that this is separation of church and state. I believe that is some sort of problem of the maybe Christian world. In today's world, there's never been a problem of separation of mosque and the state, and we know that Fethullah Gulen always praises that democracy is not something against the Sharia law or the Muslim way of living. So democracy and Muslims can be together very well, and maybe this is, in today's world, maybe the best way of ruling the states and the countries.
Can you comment on this separation of mosque and state and how Muslim countries that are Islamist, observant, for them it's one thing. It's a theocracy. There's no such thing under Muslim law, under Islam law.
Maybe, yeah, first to tell as well that I'm not a scholar or an expert in this field, but from my knowledge, as I know, I think we should first maybe provide some background to the issue. When you look at some of the teachings that are coming from the Quran, and as many of us know, the Quran is one of the main sources of the Sharia law, you realize that something like 95% of all those teachings are mainly about the personal religious life. It's more about the person's relationship with the Creator. And there are very few mentions of any form of Islamic State. There are some mentions, but it doesn't tell or define some form of Islamic State. It just gives the principles, such as protection of human liberties, democracy. So there are just principles which are there to govern the state, but not the form of state itself. And when you listen...
So the idea of that the Quran is the template for governing is not intrinsic inside the Quran, is what you're saying.
What I'm saying is that Quran is the main source of teaching for Muslims, but I'm saying that it's more about a person's development, a person's spiritual development.
That's how you interpret the Quran.
Yes, this is not my own interpretation, of course. I was reading from different sources. As I said, I'm not a scholar in this field, but this is what I know about the Quran and Islam.
Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would totally agree. You know, the Quran and Islam, I don't think that it just tells people you should govern the state with dictatorship, democracy, kingship, whatever. It just sets some principles about protecting your citizens, etc.
And Fethullah Gulen goes one step further and maps it out, how he would like to see a country, which is by democratic rule.
Of course.
Yes.
How do they feel about that in Turkey? We're going to find out in a minute. Fethullah Gulen, the spiritual leader of a movement that encompasses millions around the world. He was charged in Turkey. As a result, he fled to the United States and is living quite reclusively in Pennsylvania. Why was he charged?
You know, at that time, there was this so-called postmodern military coup in 1997 in Turkey. So when you look at the history of Turkey...
What was his threat?
I'm going to come to that. You know, when you look at the history of Turkey, you see that lots of military coups and intervention with the democracy. So at that time, those who were in power thought that he was some sort of threat to the authority and charged him with lots of groundless accusations about trying to overthrow the government, etc. But then he was acquitted all of those in about a few years later. Even it was appealed by the prosecutors that this should be, you know, he needs to be convicted. But still, it was he was acquitted at the Court of Appeal again. So all those charges.
But he has not returned to Turkey.
He has not returned to Turkey. He just because he remains controversial. He's been asked this question about why he doesn't want to return to Turkey, because some people just say that when he comes back, there's going to be lots of people coming to the airport trying to greet him, etc. He just don't want that, lots
fuss,
of he just doesn't want fuss and attention.
And yet the power of the man is extraordinary. Here he is sitting in his estate in Pennsylvania. He doesn't go out talking. He's not on television or radio, and yet he thousands around the world. He has schools that he's established through his teachings. Yeah. He has a newspaper. I think there's even a bank.
Yeah, we should correct that. He doesn't own anything. You know, personally, he doesn't. Maybe he's got some money in the bank because of the books he's writing. That's all. Other than that, all those institutions belongs to people. For example, Intercultural Dialogue Institute in Toronto.
So
I'm sure he doesn't even know the name of it.
How are all your activities funded?
We just when I came here, it was already here. When I came to Canada, it was already here, opened up by a few volunteers here, opened up a new non-profit institution who are inspired by the movement through reading his books. And he's not on TV, but maybe he's doing weekly sermons and giving out sermons through the internet to his followers.
So how was all this funded? How is your organization funded?
It is funded mainly through different donations coming from, up to now, mostly from the Turkish community living in Toronto and who are inspired by the views of Fethullah Gulen and who see that when these dialogue activities are happening in Toronto, there is some positive result and they feel themselves more a part of this society.
Yeah, they see it as a way of reaching out to the community they are living in. So that's why they keep on funding it.
Do you have a relationship with the Turkish government?
Not a direct relation.
With you at all?
Not a direct relation, but whenever we have an organization, when we have an event or something, we send them invitations, and whenever they have something, they send us invitations. And
so they don't support you in any way financially?
No financial support.
Financial support.
How about other Muslim organizations? Do you reach out to them too? And what's your relationship with them, with other Muslim groups in the city? The Pakistani population, the Arab population?
Yeah, whenever we have programs and events, we send out invitations to them as well, and their leaders also attend to our dinners as well for as they're representing the Muslim population in the city. So as are reaching out to the Christians and Jews, we're also reaching out to the Muslims. But emphasis more on Christians and Jews and non-Muslims, because we already have some sort of relationship with them. So we want to be opening up more to the non-Muslims.
You have trips to Turkey.
Yes, that's right.
Twice a year, once a year?
Last year we did it 4 times. I'm only talking about Toronto. The other cities are doing their own. And
in fact, the chief of police, Bill Baird, was on.
Yes,
Two
he
times.
first went to 2008, and last year he came again, and we wanted to do it again, and we said, okay, bring up a new group, and we can maybe consider it.
Why do you bring people to Turkey? Why do you want to bring people to Turkey?
Okay, here the thing is not about promotion of Turkey. It's a maybe secondary.
What's
third.
the point then?
The point is about giving people a new perspective about intercultural interaction. This year we wanted to make the trip involve more countries, but it was logistically too difficult. Turkey, we've got a good network there, so we can work it out. We wanted to add Bosnia this year, but we were not able to do it, and
Hopefully
maybe in the future. So the main idea is to hear, so the people who are going can have a sense of what the other culture looks like, and so that the people in there can have a sense of what the Canadian culture look like. And it's very important that they know that Canadian multiculturalism is working quite well. They don't know it in Turkey, and that's a way of telling people that, these people are coming from Canada. We take them to non-profit organizations, we take them to media outlets, we take them to families for dinners, and that's a very good way of interaction, so that both sides can learn about each other.
How about Uzbekistan? Are we going to go to Uzbekistan? Is that in the plan?
Not in the plans so far.
So it's tricky because most of you are Turkish.
Yeah, because it's easy, logistically easy.
And you know.
That's right.
So it's to involve people, to interact, to get past. I noticed that at your meetings, politics is not mentioned.
Yes.
It's very careful to stay away.
Yeah, we're totally non-political.
And yet Fethullah Gulen commented on the Mavi flotilla.
Yes, when the flotilla...
What did he say about that?
I remember he mentioned that it was a mistake that the flotilla just left the coast without getting their permissions from the authority in Israel. That's I remember. They should have gotten permission before they even started their journey.
He was critical.
He was critical, yes, because it's the movement is trying to promote people-to-people interaction and dialogue. When things like that happens, it affects people's way of thinking. So we just don't want such issues. People being killed, lots of fuss, etc. It doesn't help. It doesn't help the bottom-up approach.
You try to address things that everybody has in common rather than what sets us apart.
That's right. That's how we want to move forward.
Well, it was a pleasure having you, Azim and Fatih.
Thanks for having us.
We'll see you again, and have a safe and warm winter.
Thank you very much, Doris. Thanks for having us.
Colder than Turkey, right?
This year not.
This year Turkey is cold.
Turkey is much colder now.
Much colder this year.
Thank you again, both of you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Doris Epstein for MENSCHlife. Remember to be a mensch.